People who don't exercise or work out, why don't you? I'm dealing with epilepsy and finding the right medication. I'm constantly tired, and that's one of my seizure triggers. I'm honestly terrified that I'll injure myself if I have a seizure while exercising. I work construction and honestly after working all day going up and down ladders and moving equipment, I am all set. I used to and it feels good when it's done, but I absolutely hate every second of it. It's more fun if you have somebody to run/exercise with, but I don't, so it's very hard to motivate myself to do something I really don't like. I work a very physical demanding job and I consider that my workout lol. I need to get back into the gym though. I'm going to start tomorrow. I wasn't athletic growing up. I hated gym class almost as much as gym class hated me. We never reconciled. I also have zero discipline. I was the kid that never did my homework but got by on the tests and papers. I still blow off daily routines. Edit, I do lack discipline for things I don't enjoy, but I ended up finding my passion, worked very hard and now have career doing what I love. I just still really hate running. I walk, that's all I feel like doing. I've weighed the same since high school, I'm 47 and work a physical job. There's no way I need any more exercise than I get throughout my normal days. Just don't have the motivation. Not depressed or anything, just don't want to. Pain. I exercise a little more now, but it was all hard to make myself do any for the longest time for a lot of reasons. Firstly, it just flat out does not feel good to me. I don't know where all these endorphins are that people talk about, but they never kick in for me. It's just a long slog over which I feel gradually worse as I become more out of breath and fatigued. I'm also super self-conscious and socially anxious to the point of being borderline non-functional, so doing anything to exercise outside my home has always been a complete no-go. I'm working on it, but still have yet to find the courage to set foot in the gym. On top of being physically unpleasant, it's boring. I have so many other hobbies I want to be doing instead. Even worse than that, my own depression and self-loathing issues go into overdrive when I don't have something to distract my brain with. On a related note, one of the things I was super self-conscious about for the longest time was how dismally out of shape I was, and feeling myself get exhausted after a pretty pathetic amount of exercise was just pouring fuel on the fire of bad thoughts. Avoidance happens to be my go-to coping mechanism, so you can imagine how that spiraled. That was by far the hardest thing to overcome, but I think I'm over that particular hump now. My wife doesn't exercise at all, and I work out 5 to 6 days a week. She still looks more fit than I do. Never liked feeling out of breath, it was always a horrible feeling and I couldn't understand how anyone could like working out. Turned out I had exertional asthma/asthma, even well medicated I don't like the feeling. I eat healthy and have an active job and free time, but I don't do anything extra. I have incurable cancer. I'm gonna live my life as I want. I went to a clinic and the nurse said, "We're gonna tell you to stop eating carbs blah blah blah." She said, "In the future we'll reduce or get you off the meds." My reply was, "I don't have a future." Her reply was brilliant. Checked the computer, then said, "Eat and drink what you want." Brilliant. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm loving life. I don't want to. What are some red flags in an interview that reveals the job is toxic? In one interview I was enthusiastically assured that overtime wasn't an issue, but if you pick up an extra shift they pay in gift cards so that it saves you on taxes. I know they're trying to save themselves employment taxes and time and a half, they're not doing me any favors. I declined their offer. Well, start you at minimum and reevaluate in a month. When I mentioned a company's dismal Glassdoor evaluations, they became so enraged that they ended the interview. Well, I suppose I escaped that danger. Removed. An interviewer tried to convince me to lowball myself after I said what I'd accept as a minimum salary, which was in their offer range from the posting. If we pay you more you wouldn't get a bonus at the end of the year, and you'd be really upset when everyone else got one. What he was able to offer salary-wise was $10,000 below their posted range. The interviewer keeps telling you how fortunate you are to be there, like they are doing you a favor by giving you the job. Had an owner of a restaurant tell me, "If you have a problem don't come to me cause you won't like how I fix it. Yeah, keep your job." Removed. Trying to get you to agree to start before they tell you what you will be paid. Once I had an interview where they silently gave me a questionnaire to fill out for 50 questions and just went to another room. The questions were very detailed and stupid, mostly about money. Is your goal to make money in our company? If the answer is yes, then you didn't pass. I left before I even finished answering this list. And then I found out that they register employees for an incredibly low official salary, promising to pay most of it at the end of the month, but they delayed money for 6 months and don't give it out if the person quit. I'm glad I left. I interviewed for one once where the manager spent the whole time asking me the usual questions in between rounds of berating some poor tech support employee on the phone about their payroll software. Also, anytime a hiring manager talks up the company's bonuses and raises to justify their low salary, you'd better believe you're not actually getting either. I drove about 4 hours to an interview in another city. I told the person interviewing me that I was happy at my current job and wouldn't consider leaving just for the higher pay. He stood up and looked over the cubicle walls to make sure no one was around and whispered, "You don't want to work here." I passed on that job, but while in the new city I applied for another job where I have been happy for the last 25 plus years. We expect our employees to be flexible regarding work schedules. Would you be available to work evenings, weekends, and occasionally on holidays with short notice according to our needs? If you hear the word sales mentioned anywhere in the job description, then sales will be your main job. When they have nothing good to say about the person whose position they are trying to fill. They aren't necessarily talking bad about the person, just little digs, almost passive-aggressive. What's a serious event in the world that few people know about? There's a current civil war in Ethiopia that has left approximately 600,000 dead since beginning in 2018. It is a vicious war where both sides have been accused of forcing civilians to fight with very little training. Not a singular event, but that's why it basically forgotten about, the drying of the Aral Sea. Edit, really happy, in a very sad way, this has sparked some conversations below. People have also pointed out other similar issues in other regions/nations, which definitely need more attention. But yet, there is a lot of water-related issues in the world we are not aware enough of. People in southern Madagascar have been facing a severe drought for the last 2 years. More than 1 million left starving. It was on this documentary I saw the shady world of fast fashion on YouTube. All these mountains of used and unsold clothes from the first world are sold to Western Africa. It's a huge business there. They are then sold to vendors who resell them. The leftover clothes are sent to a dump near the ocean and the pile of them is unbelievable. It stretches for miles. The environmental problems the textile industry causes at all levels, from pesticides to water use and chemicals in dyes to transport of clothes, is one of the #1 pollution sources on the globe. That sand is the most stolen and unregulated resource in the world. My education didn't cover the breakup of Yugoslavia, which is brutal and fascinating. Each country's response, fucked up leaders, and ensuing wars and genocides are all terrible events, and I wish I'd known more about it sooner. The Great Salt Lake in Utah is nearly dried up. Estimates are that it has 5 more years, tops. There is a civil war in Myanmar, formerly Burma, between a junta coup and the people who are anti-junta. The junta are responsible for the coup that saw the deposition of a popular democratically elected politician. A dictator's son was just elected in the Philippines a few months ago. Witch hunting in Africa. The Mount Toba eruption that decimated the human population around 70,000 years ago. It could have been the end for us. Pol Pot wiped out almost a quarter of Cambodia's population during his reign using the Khmer Rouge. He died peacefully in his sleep in 1998, never being held accountable. Halifax explosion, also called Halifax Explosion of 1917 or the Great Halifax Explosion, devastating explosion on December 6, 1917, that occurred when a munitions ship blew up in the harbour of Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Nearly 2,000 people died and some 9,000 were injured in the disaster, which flattened more than 1 square mile, 2.5 square km, of the city of Halifax. Shortly before 9 a.m. many people were blinded by the shattering glass everywhere. To this day Nova Scotia sends a Christmas tree to the city of Boston in thanks for the aid provided after the explosion. There's a research that is supposed to put bioluminescent molecules in trees so streets could be lit naturally, not counting the benefit of having trees in cities. The amount of people who don't know what the 7 Years' War was is pretty surprising. While it was mostly between England and France in the 1750s, it was basically World War Zero, being fought by several nationals on a global stage. For people in the US, the French and Indian War was actually just a small part of the 7 Years' War. This was fought in Europe, the Americas, Asia, and Africa. It led into revolutions in the Americas and Europe and was a precursor to the Napoleonic Wars.